Tonight, another Port Augusta hotel the victim of a robbery, and wild winds cause havoc across the region.
This is Southern Cross News with Abby Donaldson.
Good evening. Yet another Port Augusta hotel has been the victim of a robbery. The thief allegedly threatened staff with a knife before fleeing the scene with $10,000 cash. Garth Burley has more.
The brazen robbery occurred around 11 o'clock last night when a man with his face covered entered the gaming bar of the Pastoral Hotel. Armed with a knife, a man allegedly threatened a female staff member, demanding cash.
He followed her to a rear room where he accessed the safe.
The thief filled up his bag with almost $10,000 before fleeing the Stirling North premises on foot. Management of the hotel declined to speak on camera, but told Southern Cross News they're just thankful none of the staff were harmed. Police were quickly on the scene, but could not locate the suspect nearby. Today they ramped up their search, cordoning off parts of Port Augusta to locate the culprit. And this afternoon, police made follow-up inquiries at a number of addresses.
One of those addresses, a man fled from police. A search of the area was conducted and he was found hiding in a shed at the rear of someone's premises.
A large quantity of cash was also found nearby, and police arrested and charged a 29-year-old Port Augusta man with aggravated robbery. This is the fourth robbery of a Port Augusta hotel in as many weeks.
If any local businesses want any information on safe handling of cash procedures or general business security, we'd ask that they contact the Port Augusta Community Programs branch.
The 29-year-old man was refused police bail and will face court tomorrow.
A vigorous cold front making its way across South Australia brought damaging gale force winds to parts of the region today. Cleve and Arno Bay were hit with a thick dust storm. With visibility so poor, drivers couldn't even see the road. Devastation is still hitting our farmers, with the winds continuing to see their crops' precious topsoil blow away. Parts of the Gulf saw wind gusts of up to 80 kilometres an hour. Small towns are struggling to attract outside buyers due to soaring bank deposit percentages. Residents in the Flinders Ranges believe that they're being dealt a bad hand by the big banks.
Wirrabra's not-so-lucky Seven supermarket has been up for sale for 4 years now, and the owners believe that they know the reason why.
The estate agent said to us that he believed we didn't have a chance in selling because no one's got 70% deposit.
Residents throughout the Flinders Ranges have been complaining about abnormally high deposits on loans.
Bigger towns and in the cities, 10 to 20% is the only amount that's required. Apparently it sits between 50 and 70 for some of the smaller towns in South Australia.
An increase to deposits won't only have an impact on small businesses, it may affect the prices of homes.
If shops close and people can't sell them, is that people don't live there, then the prices of housing drop in our towns.
The big banks have dismissed the allegations and have reinstated that they operate on each case individually. Westpac stated that each loan application made to Westpac is carefully considered on a case-by-case basis. ANZ claimed that loans were covered case by case and that they would look further into it. One thing is for sure, Wirrabra's ageing residents will be required to travel to Laura for their weekly shop if the Lucky 7 isn't sold. Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
Getting doctors to practice in Country SA is proving difficult, but it's hoped that trend will soon change. A group of medical students was shown the life of a rural doctor with the aim that they'll move away from the city to start their careers.
Testing the waters for a future in rural practice. Medical students from the Flinders and Adelaide universities were given the opportunity to see what it's like to practice medicine in the bush.
The idea behind the trip is to get the workforce back out into our rural and remote communities.
20 first and second year students spent the weekend in Corn. Activities included a hike up the renowned Devil's Peak, and on the way home, students were exposed to a simulated disaster situation involving the local SES, police and paramedics.
It's a very realistic exercise and it throws the students into the deep end.
The difficulty with rural medicine is uncertainty. You've got to be able to deal with unexpected events, and luckily with training we do that.
For many of the aspiring doctors, the trip cemented their desire to practice remotely.
I was already sold on the idea, but it's just, I think, reconfirmed it, yeah.
Tony Lloyd and his colleague Steve Holmes have been organising the weekend trip for over 20 years. And with a shortage of doctors hitting a crisis point in rural parts of the state, its purpose holds importance more than ever.
We need good quality doctors servicing rural Australia, and this is our way of getting them early and trying to inspire them to make the long-term commitment to rural practice.
Garth Burley, Southern Cross News.
Meantime, our local federal MP is calling for changes to the placement of regional doctors in South Australia. Roland Ramsey says there are around 29 doctors short across the electorate of Grey. He says doctors shouldn't be picking and choosing where they set up practice on the taxpayer's bill.
The taxpayer is paying for this service and the taxpayer is the consumer. Surely the taxpayer should have some say over where that service is delivered.
The call for action follows the situation in Kimba, where they're still without a permanent doctor. Mayor Dean Johnson last week resigned from the Health Advisory Council due to the lack of government support. The Regional Development Minister claims research into the cuttlefish population at Point Lowly has not been affected by the state budget. Tim Whetstone says the EP has been well looked after, with millions set to be poured into the region.
With the state budget now out in the open, the government has turned its attention to selling the document. Regional Development Minister Tim Whetstone is touring Country SA, spruiking the benefits for country residents.
I think it's important that I get out and talk to communities, spread the message of what the budget will mean to them, what it'll mean to regional South Australia.
He says the Eyre Peninsula has been well looked after.
$100 million to a new Year 7 to 12 Whyalla High School. Not only the shoulder ceiling between Whyalla and Cow, we've also got shoulder ceiling programs between Tumby Bay and Port Lincoln.
Labor has been on the attack, claiming funding's been cut for Perza and Sadi to the tune of $26 million. Mr Whetstone has denied this, saying the savings were made under the previous government.
Implemented by the previous government, those cost savings have been achieved. We've made no cost cutting or savings in Sadi.
And he's also confirmed there'll be no impact on research into the cuttlefish aggregation at Point Lowly.
Sadi will continue their research and monitoring into the cuttlefish.
Attracting health professionals into rural communities remains an urgent priority. Mr Whetstone, himself a rural MP, says he's concerned about the impact. He's hoping extra funding announced in the budget can address the shortfall.
We have put significant money into country health budget, and I think that'll be evident over the coming months.
John Hunt, Southern Cross News.
Still to come tonight, a new nature film to showcase one of the region's most misunderstood coastal habitats. Hello again. The Broken Hill Royal Flying Doctor Service Base has welcomed the delivery of a new airplane. The Beechcraft King Air 350 is one of 4 aircrafts to soon be in service, allowing more people to hop aboard.
Touching down in Broken Hill for the first time.
This is the first of 4 aircraft that RFDS has purchased.
Over the coming months, the Broken Hill RFDS base will receive 3 more of the Beechcraft King Air 350s. 2 of the aircraft will be multi-purpose, used for emergency retrievals and primary healthcare clinics. The other 2 will only be used as health clinic transport based at both Broken Hill and Dubbo.
We're in the process of training our pilots up in the new B350 Fusion aircraft.
The journey of how the first plane got to Broken Hill is an interesting one. A 3-man crew had to fly it literally across the world to its new home base, from Wichita, Kansas to Broken Hill, New South Wales, spanning 58 hours of flight and 13 countries.
USA, Canada, Iceland, England, Switzerland, Greece, Egypt, UAE, India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia.
The aircraft will now undergo an extensive checking and maintenance process.
And there's a few checks that we'd like to do on it to make sure everything's fit for service.
The aircraft will go on its first mission in October and will stay in service for the next 15 to 20 years. Patrick Reinke, Southern Cross News.
The Probus clubs of the Eyre Peninsula have gathered in Whyalla for their annual rally. Over 200 people took part in the event at the Central's Footy Club. There were musical performances, guest speakers and a classic car display. Probus is a club dedicated to bringing retired people together for activities. The president of the Whyalla chapter says it's an opportunity for the group to meet, share ideas and have some fun.
We're all retired from our workforce and it is purely a social gathering of like-minded people.
The all-day event rotates across the EP and will be held in a different venue next year. While Parkinsons SA held an awareness event in Whyalla today, guest speakers presented on the signs and symptoms and also offered support and advice on how to manage the disease. Parkinson's affects the body's motor system, with sufferers losing control of their body movements. 32 Australians are diagnosed with the disease each day. Schools from across the Mid-North gathered in Gladstone for a STEM showcase today. Students put their science and maths skills to the test, coming up with new technologies to help out our farmers.
Gladstone's high school was packed to the rafters for the start of the STEM showcase, and their skills are being put to good use.
Well, we did a bit of research on the farmers, how they move the sheep feeders, and so then we thought, why don't we put the sheep feeders on the trailer?
Students were eager to share their prototypes with the staff from Kelly Engineering, with some of their ideas already being taken on board.
Leave real applications for what they've come up with, and it'll be interesting to see. Take the ideas back to the engineering team this afternoon and see what they think.
So far, STEM has been successful in encouraging students to get involved with maths and science, two subjects which have struggled to gain traction with younger generations.
The department's focus on STEM is to engage students and hopefully in the long term get them to take on careers in science, technology, engineering and maths.
Dominic Beaton, Southern Cross News.
Well, Port Lincoln will soon be alive again, with locals showing off their kick flicks and backflips at the new and improved local skate park. The popular park has been closed since May for major upgrades and extensions and includes more varied skating obstacles for different levels, additional street skating equipment, shelter shaded seating and improved pedestrian access. The official opening of the park will kick off at 10 a.m. tomorrow. A new nature film aims to showcase one of the region's most misunderstood coastal habitats. Focusing on its connection to local fishing industries, the documentary is now being used as an educational tool for local schools.
These unusual looking plants might not look like much, but they have an extremely important role to play in our local ecosystem.
Samphire and salt marsh is one of those habitats that looks really unimportant. It's really low lying, it's muddy, it's smelly. People just think that it's really not that important, but it really is an important habitat.
The new film, titled Secrets of the Samphire, looks at the 17 species of samphire plants at the Cowled's Landing Sanctuary Zone habitat near Whyalla and hopes to educate the younger generation about the unique environment, with some local school students getting their hands dirty.
They've been going out there learning about the environment out there, so learning about the samphire habitat as well as the mangrove and the mudflat habitat, which all makes up the salt marsh.
An industry dependent on this habitat is the Spencer Gulf prawn fishery, as it's where the juvenile stock grow before heading out to deeper waters.
A lot of people think the prawn industry is in the middle of the Gulf where they harvest the species, but actually their life cycle moves around different parts of the Spencer Gulf, and the juveniles actually live in the samphire and mudflat habitats.
To learn about why this diverse part of the coast needs protecting, the film is available for free through the Natural Resources Office or website. Casey Trelaw, Southern Cross News.
Fascinating stuff. Stay with us after the break. Ground staff for Broken Hill's Alma Oval learn the tricks of the trade from a special visitor. And after wild and windy conditions in the weather.
And another mostly fine day is on the way midweek. I'll have all the local weather details soon.
Welcome back. Ground staff for Broken Hill's Alma Oval have a special visitor giving them some tricks of the trade this week. The curator for Sydney's ANZ Stadium has volunteered his time to help get the playing surface up to scratch.
one of the country's greenest thumbs in Broken Hill.
To have his expertise out here and the way that he just allows us to ask questions, and he's so open-minded and so educational towards us, it's fantastic for the town.
Graham Logan is one of the most respected groundsmen in Australia. He's been in charge of preparing the surface at ANZ Stadium for 20 years. This week, he and his team are visiting the Silver City to share their knowledge.
As much as it is a volunteer week for us and getting a bit of work done, it's just as important that these guys are learning and they're active students for the week, which is great.
A few months ago, Jared sent an email down to Sydney asking for advice on maintaining local ovals through the region's dry conditions. He wasn't expecting any personal visits.
And instead of just giving us advice over the internet or through emails, he decided to drive out here with his wife and give us a bit of hands-on information on what we should do.
Today, the team were working on improving the turf at the oval centre and the surface in the outfield.
They keep their mowing heights down and control their watering practices. Just a couple of management practices, but they're doing a really good job with what they've got.
While local cricketers will rejoice at the improved surface just in time for the season, Jared says the upgrades will benefit all sport in Broken Hill.
You know, the board games and the PlayStation's down and hopefully starting to play some sport.
Patrick Ryanke, Southern Cross News.
Oh, isn't that sweet? And time now for the weather with Amy.
Thanks for that, Abby. Wet and windy conditions were forecast across the region today. 31 in Port Augusta, Whyalla reaching 28, while maximums in Broken Hill and Port Pirie also sat in the high 20s. Just before we look at the satellite, thank you to our viewer Sonia, who sent in this beautiful shot of the flowering canola crops near Melrose in the Flinders Ranges. We love seeing all your photos, so remember, if you have one you'd like to share, you can send it through to localnews@sca.com.au. Checking the satellite now, and cloud over the far southeast is staying dry, while cloud approaching the west with a trough will cause some showers to develop. Skies are clear to the north under a high pressure ridge. If you're out on the waters tomorrow, westerly winds will shift southwesterly up to 25 knots. Seas will reach 2.5 metres with sunrise at 25 past 6. Sunny conditions returning tomorrow, while temperatures drop back down. 20 in Port Augusta, 18 for Whyalla and Port Pirie. The chance of a shower in Coffin Bay with a high of 14 degrees. Showers could develop in Port Lincoln by Saturday, a top of 15 there. The mostly sunny conditions are set to continue into the weekend in Cleve and Woodner, with the maximum sitting in the mid-teens to mid-20s. Whyalla is also set for some sunshine, a warmer 28 on Friday, before Saturday cools down a little to 18 degrees. Port Augusta will hit 30 later in the week before starting the weekend with a fine 20 degrees. And Kadina, possible showers on Saturday and a top of 16. A run of lovely days forecast for Port Pirie, with temperatures sitting at 27 leading into the weekend. After a sunny 23 degrees, maximums will only reach 13 in Clare on Saturday. And in Broken Hill, sunny days ranging from 19 to 28 degrees. So Abby, it looks like more sunshine is on the way.
Thanks, Amy. And that's the local news this Tuesday. Enjoy your evening. Good night.